Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about the books that I read in March. March was a surprisingly good reading month. I have become progressively more stressed out with school as I finish my research and finish my dissertation, yet in some ways the stress around that has motivated me to make use of the little time that I do have to read more. So somehow I've managed to read more this month than I think I have any month in the last 6 months, which is great. I have so many books to talk to you about. Books that I loved, books that I DNF'd, which there are multiple of somehow, and the so-so books. So without further ado, let's get into those books. This seems as if spring might be the season of NetGalley reviews as I work to finally get my NetGalley review. My computer is turning on. That son of a bitch never wants to shut up. I am finally getting my NetGalley reviews or my NetGalley average up. This is really good. I'm making it through, and honestly, I've been loving some of them. I've also been letting myself DNS some of them. My NetGalley list has gotten so backlogged, I think largely because of my desire to insist on reading all of what I've been given. When sometimes, if you're not feeling a book, even if it's a NetGalley arc, I think that says enough about the book. I don't feel like finishing it, which is why I've just let myself go when it comes to arcs. If I'm not feeling it, that's enough to give a review on, I think. So let's start with my DNFs. The first DNF that I'm not counting towards my red list was Road to Whoop Whoop, which I stopped at 51%. This is when I started in February actually, and I thought I was going to be able to finish it, and I might have pushed through if I didn't forget my Kindle at home. Yeah, here, before I visited my family in my home in the States. But I did, and when I got back here, my feelings had changed. I tried reading it, but at best the stories were fine. At worst, they were a chore, a major chore. And I didn't leave a review of this, like a numbered review on Goodreads for this, because one, I didn't finish all the way. And two, I think it's just part of it is that it's not on audio, so I struggle more with those books. And two, it's just not for me. I think a lot of the stories felt abridged, as if they were the setup to a larger story that needed more context. And ultimately, it just didn't work for me. And I'm really, really sad to say that, because I was really hopeful for this. This is a mashup of different genres: science fiction, dystopian, horror, and I want to say some fantasy. And there were some solid ones in there. It's just there were too many that I felt took me too long to get invested in story. It felt as if it was a chore. And that's the sad truth of it. So I decided if it feels like a chore, it just needs to be DNF'd. It's as simple as that. Would I return to this author? Perhaps. She has a couple new dystopian books, I think one this year particularly, maybe it was last year, that seem really intriguing, but I still feel unsure about returning to her. Next up is going to be a book that let's call it more of a pause, because this is one of those books, War and Peace, that was too much for me. It's not just that it's too long, it's that the character names being Russian, it's just all over the place. I have no idea who's who or what's what. I got through, I want to say 3 chapters of this slog, or actually it was 3 books, because they're broken into books. But 3 books is just maybe, I want to say 3 books might have been a sixth of the entire book. I don't know, but I was just lost. I could have pushed through, and part of me wanted to, because I want to convince myself that I can retain what I'm reading. And I want to be able to say I accomplished this, but at some point it accomplishes nothing on a personal level if I push through a book that I hear the words of and can't make sense of them. It's like if you read a paragraph and you're like, I have no idea what I just read. Or if you're driving and you realize I don't remember any of the drive. It's not as if you weren't paying attention, it's just that it didn't seem prescient enough to impress itself on your mind. And that's what was happening here. I want to give it another shot. I'm hoping that if I, instead of reading a book a week, which is how I was doing it, maybe if I try it all at once, I might be able to get into it. I might not. I'm putting it back on my shelf for now. I'm hoping to get to it this summer. We'll see if I feel compelled to. First impressions, not great. I think, like I said, I didn't make it very far. Next up is an ARC review that I did include on my red list. And it wasn't even a bad book objectively. It was talking about Last Exit, which I made it through 88% of. This is a sci-fi fantasy, you might could say horror, but I don't quite think it's horror, book that was released in March. I think it was. I got an audio arc for this. It was by Max Gladstone, the co-author of This is Celluloid Time War, which I loved. And I could see a lot of similarities between this Celluloid Time War and this. The writing is flowery and beautiful, and I love it for that. The writing was fantastic. The world building was amazing. This book, the setup is that, what was it? I want to say magic is real, basically, but it's because of quantum mechanics. Basically, there's this underlying world that people can't normally see, but weird things can happen if you understand the relationship between the world and quantum mechanics, basically. And it's this mashup of science and fantasy that I really love. Honestly, it's what pulled me in. And starting out, I was really into this. It basically follows two timelines. One, we have the modern day. You have the central character who is finding her friends from college who are now coming together to try and hunt down her old girlfriend who basically got lost by I don't know if it's called the darkness, but basically like the darkness, this monster that's in this underlying world where that most people can't see. Once they discovered it, she basically got lost there. And they're trying to find her and save her. And the story is told from two perspectives. Like one, as far as like this story of finding this, or trying to go find her. And part of that means going one by one to find her old friends from college. And then two, remembering, or rather reflecting or flashing back to experiences they had in their college years. I don't know where the story went wrong. I was so invested. Like, first off, like I said, the premise is absolutely up my alley. I was so sure I would love this. And starting out, I did. But maybe it was just that it was too long. Maybe if it was shorter, I might not have given up on it. But the fact is, I think I had 3 or 4 more hours, even at my listening speed, left. Yet I found myself completely detached from the characters. I started out interested, but the more and more we went on, the less I cared about what was going on. And even if it wasn't objectively bad, or that I wasn't completely confused, if I'm not invested, like, what's the point? Why am I doing this? I wasn't. So I had to say this is going to cut it. And I decided not to waste my time anymore on what feels like a chore. Again, it was at 88%, so if it's above 80%, I count that on my red shelf. And honestly, when it comes to like pages read, things like that, it's like, I'm fine with that because like I'm not counting the 300 pages I read for this. So when I think about like, does it even out? I think so. All in all, I want to say I gave this 2.5 to 3 stars. I think this could work for some people. I think it just didn't for me for whatever reason. Part of me wants to revisit it because I feel as if there was so much there I could love and that I know I would if given the right conditions in my mind, but I didn't. So that's why we're here. And that's why I decided to DNF it. And I must say, this was probably the most, what's the word I'm looking for? My decision to DNF is at 88%, given the fact that I didn't hate it and I wasn't confused, feels like I do have a lot of second guessing of why did I do that? Was it really worth DNFing if you're just going to count it? And since you weren't exactly hating it, I don't know. But I made the decision and now we're here. 3 DNFs in 1 month. Can you believe it? I can't. But then again, it was the best month of reading. So like 6 months. So I guess that kind of pays off. What's next? Those are 2 books. Wow, I'm not going very fast here. That's okay. Next up is What Are the Chances, which I gave 3 to 3.5 stars. This is another arc that I read. And this is about the nature of luck and why people believe in luck. In some ways, this book was interesting. In other ways, it was boring. And I think the tone, if you listen to a clip of the audiobook, which I did find the audiobook on Scribd, I think it was, even though I was given the e-arc, the audiobook is so dry. The narrator is horrible. I looked at what she does. She has a lot of self-help books, and Jesus, she's just horrendous. She needs to find a new job. I wouldn't say it to her face, but Jesus, it's so bad. So dry, so artificial. But I listened to it anyways, because it's better than listening to an ebook being text-to-speech or just slowly slogging through the ebook, which is what I would do given my pace of reading. But I don't think it took away too much. I think for me, though, the writing was still dry and it was a little too academic. And I also felt as if the story was... It's nonfiction, to be clear, like I said. The story, quote-unquote, was not well structured. It felt as if we had one of those people who were interested in telling... Let's talk about this topic, this topic, and this topic, and this topic. I know this because, like, I guess, as science writers, I write papers. I know what it's like to target this. They don't structure it as a narrative. They structure it as, let's talk about these different topics. And that just isn't a great way of writing a book most of the time, in my opinion. The big picture, I left it thinking, what am I supposed to take away from this? What is the central premise, the central point she is trying to stress? In some ways, like, I get it. Luck makes no sense. People will define luck as whatever they want it to mean. People who believe in good luck, who believe they're more lucky, tend to be more optimistic. Because of their optimism, will tend to be less inclined to give up, which will then mean that they're more likely to do better. So there is a feedback loop, which is positive. But in the same sense, though, in another sense, I feel as if she did not do a good job of exploring the dangers of magical thinking, which is something that I have a problem with this book. Even if there was like a positive feedback loop, I feel like there should be a way of reflecting on how people who don't believe in luck might be less inclined to be as supportive of themselves, to be able to like encourage some self-reflection and say to yourself, you are capable, you can do this, you just have to push and be willing to try. And that really seems to be the essential thing. If you're willing to push forward and believe enough to give it a shot, that you will tend to do better overall, which is incidentally my perspective on education too, given equal opportunities, which is not a given. But those are my general thoughts on this. It's fine, but could definitely be better. Next up is Or What You Will, which I give no rating on Goodreads. I don't want to give a rating numerically because I feel like this book wasn't meant for me. I didn't DNF it, surprisingly, but I will say that it wasn't for me. The story is basically told as this one character talking to us. He is a character in a series of books that is basically having a conversation with us and with the author of him and trying to reckon with the fact that the author is dying. And he's worried that if she dies, he will die. He'll cease to be. So he's trying to get her to write a new story. Because up to now, I think he's only been put into stories as like characters. He's like an actor in those stories where he plays different characters. And that central plot, I really like. The plot parts where we get him talking to us and talking to her were so meta and I think worked really well. But then we get a story within a story where he's exploring different time periods, different historical fiction periods that are really just references to other works of fiction. And because I'm not well versed in a lot of the fiction they explore, it went over my head, which meant I wasn't able to appreciate it. But I can appreciate the art that went into the story and the fact that this book is made for a very particular type of person, a very particular type of reader. I am very appreciative that the book exists. I feel weird saying it's a quote-unquote bad book because it's not even just a matter of my opinion. I think it's a matter of just not being the right fit. And normally I'm not a fan of that kind of conversation. I feel like some people like bad books because they have bad taste. This book is just a book that is very niche. And so to be clear, I know what I just said was very harsh, but people can like what they like and I can judge them for it. Who cares? But seriously, it's like one of those books where I appreciate it for what she was trying to do. I really like Jo Walton, which is the author of this book. I've liked a lot of her work. She's never been an all-time favorite, but she does something that I feel like a lot of authors, she does something deeper than just write a story, which is why I love her writing. This one was just a little too deep for me. If you are curious about other books she's read that I've loved, there is down there, if you can see it, My Real Children is one of my favorite. Really good. The other one is Among Others, won the Hugo Award back in 2014. She's a good author worth exploring, in my opinion. But this one wasn't for me. If you enjoy metaphysical or sort of meta-natured books, and you're really well versed in the history of literature, Shakespearean literature, other things like that, I think you'd be able to appreciate the story more. It just requires a certain level of reader that's capable of appreciating all the homages that are going on, which I just couldn't. And without that, the story becomes overwhelming and kind of a slog. That's my thoughts on that book. Into Every Generation, a Slayer is Born. Oh God, I want to do a standalone review for this, and I haven't. The longer I wait, the harder it'll be. So I'm going to keep it short. For that sake, though, to motivate myself to do a full review. This was not an arc. This was a book that I bought the day that I learned that it existed. This is a nonfiction book about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. At least half of it, if not more, is just basically a recap of the entire series, which to be fair is a little lazy in my opinion, but I think there's some depth to that commentary. I listen to a lot of Buffy recap podcasts. I'm talking like 2, 3, or 4 of them. So like I've heard plenty of recaps. I don't mind another. But there is added commentary there as to the situation, what was going on, the ideas that went into it. But what I liked about it more, I think, was the added context of the, for lack of a better word, drama around it. Because I think it's important to be very self-aware of the issues of something you love. I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but I also recognize the intense harm that exists from from Joss Whedon. But also, I recognize the flaws that are very apparent in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. In retrospect, you can easily see the problems that Joss Whedon has. You can see that insert itself into the story in places where the characters who are supposed to be good are inherently problematic because of the ideas that are embedded in Joss Whedon's work. That's something that I think needs to be acknowledged, but also I think it makes for a really compelling conversation about the themes and the problems that exist within Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or any work in general, to be honest. So it was a good book overall. It wasn't perfect. I gave it 5 stars because I love Buffy, and you would have had to do a really poor job for this not to be a 5-star. But it wasn't perfect, and that's something I'll get deeper into in the actual review if and when I do that. one thing I will say is I remember there was one part in particular where he talks about one of the people who basically quit working in entertainment because of their experience with Joss Whedon, and he casually talks about how they got a master's in, I don't remember, it was like a master's in some kind of bullshit science, which wasn't really a science. And I looked it up, it turned out it's from a school that it's like a chiropractic school, not a real school. It's like it was less than that. And I just thought to myself how he's just casually perpetuating bullshit and scamming, which is what is magical thinking. And all I could think, honestly, was that scene from Futurama.
I've got a degree in homeopathic medicine!
You've got a degree in baloney.
It was little things like that. The problem I have is, this is going for a tangent rant, is that in a lot of liberal literature, liberal commentary, there is the insertion of pseudoscientific bullshit. Things like astrology, homeopathy, aromatherapy, bullshit like that. Amongst the conversation that I like having, there's always that insertion of that stuff, and I can't help but cringe, and I hate to see it normalized, as if somebody now thinks that is a real degree, as if she's actually put in work studying a science of something that's not even real. And I'm sorry, but we live in an age of disinformation. I hope people can appreciate the importance of fact-based science. TED Talk done. We're almost through all the books that I haven't talked about yet on my channel. We have Please Talk to Vera Dietz. I believe I gave this 3.5 to 4 stars, maybe even 3 to 3.5. This was fine, but it was one, forgettable, and two, unfortunately, my least favorite. There was a lot of slut shaming in this, which isn't the first time I've seen slut shaming from A.S. King, but I feel as though it was challenged in the other book that I read from her. And this one, it just felt normalized, as if that was like the go-to, which was disappointing. I like to think that maybe she's just grown and realized it's a poor thing to include, casually include. What is Vera Dietz? I want to say, oh, I remember now, her friend dies, her best friend. And it's basically her trying to come to peace with that reality and understand the fact that they never made up before he died. And what's more, he's thought to be responsible for some major crime before he died, or even the reason he did die. And she knows that it wasn't him. And she hasn't said anything to police or anything. So everyone just thinks this dead kid is responsible for this horrible action. So she has to reveal it. This book deals with the common things that A.S. King does, which deals with, being a teenager, growing up, and dealing with complex situations in your youth and with mental health. It's good for that. I'm glad to be able to return to that. But it wasn't her best. Up next is Going Up Dead in Texas. This is Stephen Graham Jones, one of his earliest books. Was it even his first? I'm not sure. But this is about, I feel like it was a semi-autobiography is what I heard somewhere, but it's essentially about this man who is an author now, maybe even a journalist, I don't remember, but he's an author. He's basically writing a sort of autobiography, a biography of this town and everything that happened. And the term Going Up Dead in Texas refers to the fact that so many children in his childhood, and even before him, died in this Texas town due to just horrible accidents that kept happening one after the other. And it's not that it's inherently supernatural or anything, it's just a bunch of tragedies in a town that seems to let it happen. The fact that he survived, it's sort of a reflection on this character going up dead in Texas, because everyone is dead around him, it seems like. This book is marked as horror. I didn't quite get horror vibes. It felt like a mystery trying to understand his history. In doing so, there was some definitely disturbing and ominous stuff going on. Like the deaths of all these people it was so cavalier and so very unsettling. So in that sense, it was very effective. I think I give this between 3.5 and 4 stars, just because I loved the writing so much, and I loved the tone, but there was just something that didn't quite hook me as strongly as I had hoped. Next up is Parable of the Sower, which I've talked about before, 5 stars. I think I will refer you to, if I can find the link, to the review I had before, but I also want to do a standalone review of the entire series once I reread the second one again. This is about a far future where, not a far future, 2025? Yeah, I think I used to say 2015, I think it's like 2024 actually. So the near future, far-right candidates in office, climate change is going to be progressively worse, and society is breaking down. So we have Lauren Oyeyemi, that's not right, that's an author, Oyeyemi, but Lauren, damn it, get a last name. It doesn't matter. Anyways, she can sense what's about to happen, and basically she wants to find a group of people to start her own community, to be able to live off the land and not be as dependent on this toxic society that's crumbling around her, to sort of build a better future. At the core of that is this religion called Earthseed. Everything you touch, you change. Everything you change changes you. And that's a central premise that's explored in this. This is a sort of basically a religion being built inside the book that centers around that. I love it. I love the religion in particular. Yes. Next up is the Dragon Republic, book 2 of the Hoppy Ward trilogy. And I gave this between 4.5 to 5 stars. I love this. We have a whole discussion of this on Erica from the Broken Spline's channel. I will link to that below. It's just a continuation of the series. Solid book. I love it. I'm excited for book 3, which I've already started. So far, I'm not as encapsulated as the second one, but I'm hoping that'll change because I had to finish it this week. So now let's just do a quick run through of these Mira Grant books that I read for my Mira Grant vlog, which is now up. You should check it out. A lot of fun doing that. We have Feed, a zombie book that I gave between, I think, 3.5 to 4 stars, maybe 3 to 3.5, basically 3.5 stars. It was good. It was unique, but it was a little too YA for me. Next up is The Shadow of Splinter House, a haunting house tale that gives us some homages to Shirley Jackson. Solid book. I really liked it. I think I gave it between, was it 4 to 4.5 stars? Check out my full video for that. Next up is The Kingdom of Needle and Bone. Another one that I really liked, between 4 to 4.5 stars. Basically, a pandemic's broken out because of a lack of vaccines. This was right before the pandemic actually started, and it was surprisingly good. It was very unsettling, especially as it related to children. Again, see my video for that. And then finally, Square Cube, the whole thing that motivated me to read Mira Grant and to buy these books. Loved it. I got 5 stars. I talk about it more in there, like I read the whole thing physically because it's not on audio, but I do want to reread it. A rift breaks open in space-time. Monsters come through. The world is changed irrevocably from there as the laws of physics begin to break down. Sci-fi horror, cosmic horror. How can you not love that? It's so good. Please check the video out if you want more. That's it. Those are all the videos, all the books that I have read this month. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you read this month. If it was a good reading month, if you read any of these, or if you're intrigued, now that I mentioned them. And as always, have a great day. Stay safe, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.